Hello everybody, welcome back. My name is Dominic and I am the host of the Android Factory. Thanks for tuning into another episode here in the series. The previous episode we went ahead and just enhanced the UX of the application, allowing the user to select a particular element in the list and then edit that list or edit that item. We've reused and repurposed the add item screen essentially, so it's a familiar flow for the user, it's a familiar layout, and that's always a good practice here. But I want to continue expanding this application and provide multiple screens here at the top level. So I'm thinking, some kind of maybe like profile screen that you can go ahead and set up a few different um, I don't know, like, things you want to configure, maybe like the different colors that designate the different priority levels here and whatnot. So we could do that with the tabs up front. We could put like a little icon in the corner here in the menu and navigate, but I have something else in mind here. So I will link this article in the description, but the usage of the bottom navigation makes a lot of sense here, and it will also play nicely with our navigation components, which you'll see in a little bit here. So pretty straightforward here. We're just going to go ahead and copy this little layout here, or this little element in the layout. We're going to add it into our root layout, of course. We will call it the bottom navigation. Wrap content. I actually created a menu. I called it bottom app bar. That's not right. So I can rename that. But then we just need to set the constraints a little bit here on it, and then on this one, instead of going to the bottom of the parent, we can set it to be the bottom to the top of the bottom navigation. So now we're going to go ahead and kind of divide up our UI accordingly. So inside of here we should have our little home and profile icons, which I kind of want to use as a way to just navigate between the primary list that we show and the user's profile. Kind of just wondering why this isn't coming up here. Oh yeah, there's also the ability to add badges to the different elements in the in the list a little bit there in the bottom navigation. Go ahead and apply a little bit of a style here. Yeah, I'm kind of very confused why this is not coming out the way that I want it to. Am I missing something in the... Hmm. All right, not entirely sure why the home and the profile are coming up there as different. Like, oh, this one might be selected and that one might not be. Aha, ha 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 ha. Okay, so let's just go ahead and run this right now and let's see how it looks. Okay, yes, this makes sense because this is basically the selected item in the list, and then this is now the selected item in the list, right? So you can kind of see how it enables and disables them. And great, this is looking good. We're just not capturing these on clicks here. However, everything else should be working. And that's interesting. We're going to have to go ahead and hide that on certain screens. So let's take a look at the documentation here, and they basically allow us to listen for particular clicks and what to do at that moment. However, we want to not only do something in particular, but we want to essentially load a different screen into the application, right? So we would have the list of our, like this home is set up appropriately where it has the list of our elements. And then as we go to the profile, we're going to basically want to switch to a new fragment here that's going to display the profile information. So bottom nav layout, Android Jetpack Navigation. This sounds good. A little medium post. I'll also post this one in the description here, but yes, this is what we're looking for. Navigation UI setup with nav controller. So we're just going to go ahead and take that, go to our main activity, and instead of this normal setup action bar or setup with nav controller, we're going to go ahead and find our binding. No, sorry. Very good. So we're going to go ahead and set up with our bottom navigation view here, and let's go ahead and run things again and see what happens. So actually it seems like nothing is happening when we click on the profile. It's not even selecting over to it, but I believe that's because we have not completed our setup per se. So basically the idea here is that I'm going to rename this to be home fragment, and then we're going to call this one here profile fragment. Now profile fragment doesn't exist, but our home fragment does exist. And the idea here is that we can coordinate the different clicks here in that bottom navigation with our nav graph that's set up at this moment. So you can kind of see the screen flickering there a little bit, and that's because we are actually like navigating to a screen that we're already on here. So you can see that there is actually a communication going on between this bottom nav and the fragment that you actually end up seeing here. So let's go ahead and create our profile fragment really quickly. I'm just going to go ahead and basically copy that. We're eventually going to call this profile fragment, fragment profile. Let's call this profile, and then I don't think we need an action at this moment, so we're just going to do that. We can move this guy around a little bit here, and then we need to go ahead and create some stuff. So inside of our UI folder, we're going to create the corresponding package that is called profile. Inside here, we're going to create our fragment, the profile fragment. That's going to go ahead and extend our base fragment. And then lastly, we need to come up with a layout here that is just going to be fragment profile with probably just an epoxy recycler view, because we know how powerful that is. So we are just going to utilize that. Again, we'll make use of a grid layout manager somehow. Let's just set the span count to 3, so we'll see something change in the UI a little bit here. We will set our background to be the attribute background, which we've seen before. And then if we go ahead, where are we, and check out our nav graph, right, we should see something here at this point. And if we go ahead and rerun our application, we will see the home screen here, and then as we go to profile, we can see that the screen is actually changing. We are loading in the new fragment here, and then we are loading in our home fragment here, right? So we don't have anything, and I guess just as a proof of concept here, we can very quickly add a text view to the screen. That's just going to say profile. In the middle of the screen. And so then if we go ahead and rebuild all of this, we will see of course, we need to, in our profile fragment, actually go ahead and set some of this stuff up here. Okay. And now at this point, we should end up getting our view on screen. Boom. So now we can see here that without doing anything here, right, we don't actually handle the on-click of this explicitly at the activity level or anything along those lines. We've just basically configured that the bottom navigation view here will actually interact with the nav graph that we've defined. And because we have in our nav graph the ID of these fragments being home fragment and profile fragment, because that matches up directly here with our home fragment and profile fragment ID names for the menu. And this menu, again, is what we're inflating in this bottom navigation view. So because we've kind of married those two things together, the system takes care of the rest and actually is able to point to the correct fragment that needs to be inflated based upon which element is selected here. So very interesting implementation that they provided for us here, a little bit of connectivity going on. If you notice here, we kind of lost our header in the process here, so we're no longer kind of keeping that up to date. So let me see if we can fix that very quickly. Okay, so it actually looks like we didn't have to comment this out after all. We could use this little helper function here. I think I'm actually going to go ahead and do the same. Yeah. So we didn't actually have to comment this line out. We actually needed to keep it in. However, now we have a funky thing here. So we have our home, but then when we go here, we have profile with a back button. So we don't really have, which does take us back, which is really cool, but we don't really have this notion of these two fragments being equivalent as far as both of them being high level, right? So the system actually thinks that we're like navigating into another fragment here from the home fragment, which is why this ends up happening. However, we can, instead of giving it the nav graph here in the app bar configuration, we can give it a set of IDs. which is the IDs of the top level fragments. So if we go ahead and say r.id.homeFragment, and r.id.profile fragment, and then we use that same app bar configuration in the same functions and rerun everything, we now have notified we've created the app bar configuration with the notion that both of these fragments are top level. So you see that the toolbar changes based upon the label we have set in the nav graph, but it does not have the little back arrow because the system now understands that this app is not navigating deeper when going to the profile. So this was a brief introduction to how to handle the bottom navigation here and how to connect it with our Jetpack navigation components. This is a very much so production-worthy concept to understand, so I hope that you have learned something, and if you have, please drop a like, please subscribe for more, and in the next episode we'll go ahead and build this out a little bit more to actually get the profile up and running and continue on development from there. So I'll catch you in the next one.